Live from the South.
I love City Image.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the City Image Podcast, and I am very, very excited. Very excited because we have a very dope episode lined up. We are talking Black Panther in its fullness.
Yo.
And it's about to be
Wakanda
forever. It's about to be lit, man. Before we dive in, though, let's introduce ourselves. You know who I am. I am Bryant, the theological giant in the building. All the way to my left, Danny, go ahead. Tell them who you are.
My name is Daniel, the creator. Much love.
Live in the full effect.
Wakanda forever.
We appreciate you.
Your boy, Rich the husband, straight out of Wakanda. Skitty that papa.
And we have a special guest, man. He is here again. It's his second time. He did a very popular City Image podcast on the Hebrew Israelites. And now he's come back to bless us with his knowledge again on this very important topic. Let him know who you are, brother.
Rasul the Wakandan.
Hey.
No,
What was his nickname last time?
Prophet.
The prophet.
The
The
messenger.
Wakandan prophet. No, the messenger.
It was the messenger.
The messenger.
The
It was the
Wakandan messenger. The war dog.
Yeah, but honestly, we can change it. You know, these things aren't set in stone. Rich changed his name, so it is what it is.
I'm going to do it again, too. My name's M'Baku.
Mbaku.
Yeah, I'm gonna call James. James is a Q,
Yeah, he's
and
definitely-
M'Baku is accused of the Wakandan world. But fellas, let's just dive into this thing, man. I wanted to start by asking this question. So we're gonna dive in. We're gonna analyze this movie from every aspect, deep sociological issues. So, I mean, I know some of you guys want the intellectual rigor of this movie, and we're gonna get there for sure. But can we geek out for a little bit, fellas?
Yes.
Can we just geek out, stand back as
Real
nerds
Real talk.
and lovers of all things Marvel, and just talk about the significance of Black Panther in the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe? What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, as a movie.
As a movie.
Once again, Marvel kills it. This was an incredible film. It was fun. It was funny. It was
Oh, man.
action-packed. It was deep. And so for just as a standalone piece of art,
Yeah.
it was dynamic
Yeah.
and to be celebrated and watched
Absolutely.
again and again, as we've done.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Specifically, what's interesting to me is it is the 18th installment in the Marvel Universe.
Wow.
Can you just say that number again?
18.
18.
And it's the last one before everything hits the fan with Infinity Wars.
Absolutely.
Jeez.
Thanos
And
is coming.
This has significance to Marvel fans all over the world. It has tie-ins and it interplays with storylines. Like what happened after the Civil War movie. What happened with this whole aspect of vibranium and all of that comes into play in Wakanda. So like the fact of the matter is that to see that this story is playing a significant part in the most successful movie franchise ever is very significant to me.
Yeah, I just want to say shout out to DC Comics. I'm wearing a DC Comics shirt right now.
Yeah.
We're taking massive losses.
Oh,
Taking
man.
losses. Unprecedented.
Yo, y'all got
the
Black Lightning,
Valley,
no?
bruh. We
Got
need
Black
to,
Adam.
we need to have like a Static Shock. We need somebody to rise and not
man.
Cyborg. Cyborg.
Listen, Batman is the only one I claim, so I don't know about the rest of y'all.
Like it. We have a Lucius Fox movie, and he just makes
Okay.
weapons all day.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one thing. I was just very excited to be a part of another Marvel production. I will say I was disappointed not to see an Infinity Stone in this movie. I was almost convinced that there would be an Infinity
Like the Soul
Stone
Stone.
in-
Do we know what a Soul Stone is?
in Wakanda. I thought
Yeah.
that's what we were gonna have, but they're holding that card to the chest. So whatever they do them. But I got to see, you know, if you before we continue any further, spoiler alert.
Spoilers.
Word.
Spoiler alert.
Word.
Huge
Major
spoiler
spoiler alert.
If I haven't already spoiled it.
Oops.
But yeah, I was expecting an Infinity Stone in this one. I'm really excited for what Civil War will bring. You know, just with
Infinity
Black
War.
Panther being a part of that story now. I'm also really excited for this to be so like again, I was talking to my mom. My mom trying to watch Black Panther again. She knows nothing about Marvel. But her question when the movie was done was, hey, is he in the next one? And I was like, oh, man, this is somebody's gateway drug to the
Yes.
Marvel Cinematic
Oh,
Universe.
Absolutely.
And I'm hyped for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The brilliance of this being released prior to
Oh,
Infinity
yeah.
Wars,
Yeah.
because people are going to be like,
Yeah.
I need
Yes.
my T'Challa.
Yes.
Where my T'Challa?
Yes.
And so, you know,
And
put
all in the trailer, Wakanda.
Yo.
Yeah.
And you see them running there. All the army of Wakanda.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, he doesn't do trailers. That's the backstory.
Yeah.
You shouldn't either.
I don't have the self control. Sorry.
Yo, the
But,
Civil War trailer though.
Yeah.
They made sure to put T'Challa front and center
Wow.
to let people know
He's here.
he's here. So come get your fix again.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, man. But I think I don't know. When I thought about the whole why is there not an Infinity Stone? Maybe they just wanted to make the movie so standalone that if you know nothing about
Right.
I
the
got you.
Marvel universe, you can enter into this movie and know everything. Because I was talking to
Yeah.
actually Josh, one of our pastors at Bridge Church, and he was like, "Yo, I know nothing about any of this." And so on the way to the theater, I was explaining the vibranium and explaining that. And after the movie, he was like, "Yo, one thing they explained vibranium from the very beginning. It's something I know nothing about superhero movies, but I could just enter into it and understand what was taking place." So, and I thought they would make the movie like that because this is Black Panther's introduction,
Yes.
and they know that this had a much wider scope. That this is going to appeal to wider audiences
Right.
than the typical
Right.
Marvel movie. So,
That's good.
And it's a gateway drug.
yeah.
Right.
So,
Completely.
yeah.
Completely. This is the weed of.
This is the weed of Marvel.
Yeah, man. So Marvel's killing it, man. As I think about 18, and they've interweaved it so beautifully.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's a beautiful. It reflects the glory of the Lord.
I agree.
The Marvel universe reflects
After
the glory
every
of God.
movie, people know. Sit down.
Yes.
Wait for your two.
Right.
Not one.
If
wait
the
for
lights don't come on, you
the
better
lights
not
don't come
move.
on.
Yo.
Wait for them, and it's like everything building up to this moment, and it's just like it's a beautiful thing to watch, man. So now I know we kind of already talked about this, but as we dive now deeper into the movie, as you finish watching it, what hit you? What were you left with? What were your thoughts, general, big picture thoughts about?
You're saying
what-
like 30 seconds
30
after.
seconds after what landed on you?
I felt like, wow, I saw myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt a
Yes.
story that had tapped, into like my story.
Yes.
And that was something, speaking of Marvel, and this was why it was mind blowing, because one of the things I love about Marvel, especially in contrast to DC, is that like they tie in their storyline with bigger historical moments. So Captain America, you
Yeah.
can't is completely tied into World War II.
Yeah.
And then the X-Men are tied into the to the nuclear arms race, right?
Yeah.
And so you have these historical moments that are the backdrop. But the thing that I had never stopped to think about is like this whole aspect of history, meaning what would it look like to take that same approach that Marvel has taken with these major other stories and apply it into a storyline that actually ties into my story as an African American.
Beautiful.
And
Wow.
I hadn't even considered it before. I didn't even know I was missing it. And that was what Black Panther in so many ways was like. I didn't even know that I missed the aspect of like, oh, this is what majority culture people feel like when they go to movies all the
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
And it was like, for me, like, man, this was amazing to feel like I could relate to the themes and the things that were even in the backdrop of a sci-fi superhero movie that were very much real to my personal experience. That was what hit me the most.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for that for us Puerto Ricans and Spanish people in general. We got Zorro and Nacho Libre. So
Coming in.
Whoa, Miles Morales.
Nacho
Yeah,
Miles Morales, Spider-Man.
He's like an Afro Latino.
Maybe we'll see
He's
him one day.
Afro-Latino, yeah.
But
you're right. We need more.
Nah, but I mean, it was one of the. I immediately thought I have to see this again. Mm-hmm. Right, I have to process this movie again.
Absolutely.
And just the way that it portrayed like strong women.
Yeah.
Was amazing. Lupita Nyong'o. Yeah. I mean, amazing. Like her character throughout, and I just like. Her skin is flawless. Yeah.
Oh,
like side note,
that's not. Hold up.
Yo, she instantly became like crush, woman crush.
Let's keep it 100.
100.
The lighting
100.
on the scene when she was at the end talking to T'Challa, I just noticed the lighting on this dark skinned woman, the sun, and the way that it was so well lit. I just was like, this is beautiful to watch. So
yeah, silky smooth skin. It's amazing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
What hit me? I just love being black.
I'm black, man. Y'all. I'm black.
I just left that theater like, yo, this is so much black glory. I'm overloading on this. Like, it was just like everything about it, man. Just from Wakanda and seeing what a glorious Africa could look like. Just to celebrate, just even seeing the Africans dancing and wanting to be a part of that, wondering what it would have been like if the transatlantic slave trade hadn't have happened, and seeing all these beautiful dark-skinned women, if I can keep it 100%, and you don't even, I mean, no shades to light-skinned women. I love
all the women.
I love that. Shout out to that. But you just never see Hollywood. I don't know how many dark-skinned women they've ever casted in, period. And then you see all of that. It was just the whole thing. I just left proud, man, of this, proud of Ryan Coogler and what he accomplished, Michael B. Jordan, all the star-studded cast, just to see on this scale such a, like to see us treated as equals, like, it wasn't, and we've seen black superhero movies in the past, and shout out to Meteor Man.
Meteor Man was lit.
Put some respect on his name. Robert Townsend.
We love Blade though. That was a well done movie. You know what I'm saying?
Blade saved Marvel, low key.
Yeah, but to see like they treated this movie like they did the Avengers, like they did Captain America, Iron Man. This wasn't like we just gonna throw this at y'all black people. No, this was a legit film. I just was so proud, man. So proud.
Yeah.
Man, I think my initial thoughts were a little bit darker.
Okay.
My initial thought when the movie was done was, this is not fair. And I feel like, man, it's not fair that people who do not enjoy or celebrate geek culture or comic book movies have to come outside of the genres of movies that they typically enjoy to be able to enjoy an experience of having black people on display in a respectable way, in an awesome way like that. And of course, for me, who is a nerd and who's going to watch this movie anyway, and it also being this spectacular black experience was like a double layer cake, right? But, I think about people who are like, man, I don't really rock with like superhero movies, but I got to go see this. Like, it's not fair. There should have been a great black experience in the genre of movie that you like.
Yeah.
And I just really hope that this is the beginning of us not having to hold, because it's also not fair on Ryan Coogler. Like, he had to come up with a movie that was going to be the definitive black movie in 90 something, 100 minutes, you know what I mean? Like 2 hours of space to be like, man, I need to include all the black themes and hip hop and women. And it's just like, man, I have to create this definitive experience. I'm just trying to make a dope comic book movie. And so it's just so much pressure. And it just reminds me like, man, we always have to do 4 times as good, 6 times as good just to be recognized, And so it's just like, we can't, we can never like have an easygoing experience. And it kind of ties into like the white people conversation of just like, man, like when you go see Lord of the Rings, you're not like, man, this is the definitive white experience of just like movies. It's just like, I can just watch the story. I can
just watch this.
And I think about kids this Halloween, all the black kids are going to want to be Black Panther. But
Yeah.
all the white kids still get the whole Avengers.
Yeah.
You know what I
And
mean?
if they go to an Avengers movie and it's bad, it's like, okay, well, it
Whatever.
was bad. Like,
yeah,
it's whatever.
it was just whack.
Yeah.
We can't be
if
whack.
Black Panther sucks.
Bruh.
Joe.
Bruh. It would just be a blight
It
on
would
our
be a
very
blight.
existence.
All the
Step blemish.
hype that was behind this, and if it had not lived up to it, it couldn't even be mediocre. Like, it
Nah,
literally
it had to be this.
But he shot under the pressure.
He did, and
Yeah.
so that's my hot take. My hot take was just like, man, I want more, but I'm really trying to stay present and love this movie because it was amazing. But that was my first thought.
It's good stuff, man. So obviously, one of the big things that we saw all the social media posts, Wakanda Forever.
Yes.
This one of the huge ideas all throughout the movie was this country in Africa called Wakanda that isolated itself, remained hidden, and became wealthy and powerful primarily because they have this rare mineral, kind of a, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, like this
Metal.
catch-all
Yeah.
kind of, elixir, or I don't know what it is. It's just everything. It just could do everything, literally. This mineral called vibranium that they basically put in all their technology, and they became wealthy because of it. And so there was this portrayal of a technologically advanced sort of utopian country that escaped colonialism and was just a picture of Black excellence, African excellence. And so we got taken into that world, man. Obviously, I remember when Okoye is just flying through the trees and she just goes through the shield and she's like, "We are home." I can't do the African accent. And it's just like you see buildings and everything just looking so elaborate. And so into that world, what were your thoughts as you began to see that, as you began to experience Wakanda? How do you guys feel about that?
The one thing, and again, this is a little bit of a darker take, but my first thought was, what would have been? Like,
come on.
Like, we're looking at like the reality, historically, and this is where it's significant that, and it's not a coincidence, I'm sure, that this precious resource, this precious metal of vibranium, is found only in Africa, and yet it finds itself on Captain America's shield. It finds itself, on Claw's, gun deal, and just the idea of exploiting the basic point though is Africa is very rich in resources.
Yeah.
And that is not science fiction. That's true.
Facts.
And so I thought about, like, man, what would have been had it not been raped of its resources, pillaged all these, centuries, and almost seeing this glimpse of a place that can thrive, that could have thrived, and that can still thrive, because it is still a very rich place. And so I thought about that, and but it was just kind of fun to go through the ride and see how all the different layers that they didn't throw away. It wasn't like completely fully high tech. They were still, rural. They were still
Like dirt roads.
agricultural. And it was just this like it was a combination.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I experienced when I went to Africa. Is that I saw a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. The most technological advanced country in this fictional universe, and you don't see like laser rifles, you see spears. And it's like they communicate with these like crazy like holographic things, but it's like they still have like it's within these beads, you know, and
It's like a distinctly African
it was
technological
like
advancement.
science fiction, but like real life Africa like had a baby. And it was just like for every piece of even in their base where Shuri's making all the tech, like there's carvings and there's paintings on the wall in the midst of all of this really high tech technology that she's making. And so that was beautiful to see, and I do think that they were trying to show like, man, this is symbolic of Africa, and it's symbolic of like even when T'Challa and they fly in, he's like, oh man, this never gets old. I think that's how we see Africa. We see it as like antelope just kind of running around.
Yes.
But it's like there's something under the surface that we don't see. There's a force field in real life that we're not seeing past.
Yeah.
And I feel like media is a big aid to us having that bubble over our eyes and not being able to see it, because all we see is like the safari.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We're not seeing what's really happening, like the real advancements that are happening in this continent.
Yeah.
And so I was really glad to kind of see a glimpse into that through a fictional lens, right?
Yeah.
But it was a lens nonetheless to help me see, even just a symbolic view of what it looks like under the surface.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it was paradigm shifting. And as I think about why, it began to dawn on me how much white supremacy has really affected the way that I view Africa. And so I'm just going to confess, I'm a sinner. I found I found the character of Shuri. As I was watching Shuri and she was making all these technological advancements, something inside me was like, this seems weird. And I was like, why does this seem strange to me? Because I had never seen a African woman do technology. Like it wouldn't have been weird to me if you saw like Q from 007 or like some white male. If they were doing technological advancements, they're normal. Okay, we expect. But as I was watching, I was like, what? And I began to because I had never seen that before. And I began to think, well, why? Because my picture of Africa, I don't think of them as, it's almost like it's exposed in my mind how I kind of denigrated the image of God in them to think that, can I see them as capable engineers, more intelligent in some ways than even white engineers, to be able, could a Shuri exist? Right? A African woman doing all of these technological advancements, and why initially it didn't sit right with me, and it was just because my paradigm it was so oppressed with white supremacy that I just never saw people that look like me, especially, and here's the thing, I think in our consciousnness, sometimes we look at Africans as even less than we look at Black Americans.
Yes.
I wonder if it was a Black American, kind of like Morgan Freeman's character as he was doing that stuff for Batman.
Yeah.
That didn't strike me as strange. Maybe because I could see probably, okay, he's an American. He can do that.
He has access.
Yeah, he has access. It was weird to me because it was an African, and I think a woman too, that was doing this. And so, but then I began to rejoice because I was like, but there are going to be so many young Black women growing up thinking, I can do that now. I can do that. I've never seen it, but I can do it. And it helped to eradicate some of the false understandings of expectations that I have on people, and the way that I have been conditioned to view, especially Africans, in such a lowly place that I could never have imagined seeing a African woman with all these technological advancements. So it was paradigm shift.
Yeah, you weren't the only one. There definitely were moments of decolonialization that I was having to experience as I was watching it the first time. And then, it was like, okay, I need to I'm like suspending disbelief and like, why is certain things unbelievable in the first place? And it's just because it's like, I've just never seen this before. I've not been programmed to think that this is feasible. And so to kind of be exposed to that and to be challenged with that and then to kind of transform it, I think has been really good.
Yeah, man, that was good. That's a good point, Rasul. Cool. Well, let's take a break, and after the break, we will dive right back into looking at specific characters in the story of Black Panther.
What's going on, guys? This is City Image, and this is Daniel, the creator.
And it's your boy, Young Flatbush.
And Bryant, the theological giant. We just want to thank you so much for all the support that you've shown us thus far. But we just wanted to ask you guys to remember, if you haven't already, to like us, share the content if it's blessed your soul, subscribe, review us on iTunes. We're also on Google Play.
And if you want to keep up with us on social media, you can check us out on Facebook, City Image. We're also The City Image on Twitter and Instagram. And if you want to get in contact with us, you can hit us up at cityimagepodcast@gmail.com.
And again, thank you for the support.
Peace.
All right, welcome back. As you guys know, we've been talking Black Panther. So I wanted to ask the question about how this movie sort of portrays blackness, and how what does this movie sort of contribute to our understanding of blackness, especially as we see there's different conversations happening within the black diaspora from the film. So what were your thoughts on that, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think for me, the aspect that it was a conversation, an African diasporic dialogue.
Yeah.
That was the first time I've seen that on film, right? So what I mean is, we've seen movies that take place in Africa or in America, but to have this interplay of a storyline that is actually kind of having this conversation and it's expressing a conversation and wrestling with questions that are diasporic in nature was really profound. But before you even go there, you have to go with the cast itself, right?
Sure.
Absolutely. You have Chadwick Boseman, African American from South Carolina. Yeah. You got Lupita, a Kenyan Mexican.
Yeah.
Daniel Kaluuya, Ugandan UK native combination. Danae Guerrera, Zimbabwean and American, but raised in Zimbabwe halfway through her life. Winston Duke, who plays M'Baku, from Tobago too, Trinidad and Tobago, but specifically from Tobago. Letitia Wright, who plays Shuri, Guyanese, and so just a tapestry of different expressions of the diaspora. Of course, Ryan Coogler, the director, as well, and so that piece is significant. And then on top of that, the conversation that we get as a result of, okay, you have Wakanda in Africa having an impact on this, the Killmonger, his dad is Wakandan, his mom is from Oakland, and he's left there. And of course, all of the symbolism that draws between for African Americans, transatlantic slave trade being left in America and disowned, disconnected from an heritage, and him, and that being a prime motivation for the prime subplot of the movie. You know what I mean?
Just to piggyback off of that, it's interesting when T'Challa goes through to see his ancestors. You saw so many of the ancestors symbolizing the fact that he is still connected to his ancestors. But when Killmonger goes to see his ancestor, it's just his dad. He doesn't have the lineage before that. So just to highlight that point of this estrangement that the movie so beautifully just depicts.
Yeah, a couple things I want to kind of throw out to you guys is, so Killmonger's father, I forget his name, Njobu. Thank you. In the beginning, we see him talking to T'Chaka, right? And he says to him, "Man, I came here on a mission, right? But I saw so many of our people like in distress, and I could stand by no longer," is what he says. And I thought that was so interesting that he referred to the people in Oakland as our people. So he was really saying, we're from Wakanda, but these are our people here who are suffering. I have to do something about that. And it just made me think like, man, being here in America, do Africans see African Americans as their sons or like offspring? Or like, do they feel a connection? Like, man, like that's us over there, right? So I just wonder, like, because I know on the flip side, I definitely don't see Africa as like, oh yeah, that's us over there. I don't feel that connection, and so it was very. It was amazing to see his empathy coming from this royalty line, having vibranium, growing up really in a luxurious kind of positioning, to come to, the hood, and then feeling like, you know what, I'm going to give up my luxury to have the ability to save these people, right? And even seeing Killmonger inherit that.
Yeah.
Right. Just like, nah, like I am going to fulfill the mission that my father kind of set forth to really help out the people who are here using Wakandan resources. Now he goes about it in a terrible way, but he really is kind of living out the legacy his father was trying to create. And so it really just had me thinking about this whole idea of us, African American or Caribbean American and African native. Like, do we even feel that us amongst all of us? Like, is there an us, a global us? Thoughts on that.
And I would say, again, I can't speak for Africans, but for myself, no. I mean, up until this point, honestly, just wearing a dashiki, I'd never have wanted to identify myself with any part of Africa until this point.
Yeah.
I feel like this movie has in some way kind of reawakened that desire.
Me too.
Like one thing I was telling someone after this, I was like, yo, I really want to go on Ancestry.com and figure out where I'm from.
Hardcore.
Like because I for so long have just disregarded that part of my history. I know, okay, my parents are from Trinidad, and I know that sort of that immediate ancestral path, but I don't know what part of Africa I'm from. And for the longest while, didn't really care to think about it. Part of that, I think, is because of white supremacy's sort of suppression of the beauty of Africa, to the point where I've just kind of disregarded it. Like, what do I really want to do with Africa? Because in my mind, I have this, it's nothing but, poor people over there, right? Even though I know that's not true, but I feel like in some respects, even though this is probably a bad thing to admit, is because of this movie, I'm having this sort of reconnection with Africa and wanting to know what is my history here, and having, again, this reimagining of, like what you said, Rasul, what it could have been, and wanting to see it like that again, right? So,
and not just what it could have been, but what it could be. And the
Yeah,
reason why
that's
I
good.
said
That's
that
good.
is because it reminds me of when I went to Cameroon to study abroad. So I was a senior in college, Africana Studies major. So I was studying this, and I think as an African American in particular, who was kind of raised with a value and an appreciation for my culture and heritage, I had a sense of longing, and that's why I chose to study abroad in Africa. So I go over there, and actually I got this shirt made, when I was in Cameroon. And so I picked the fabric out on the street. I bargained for, the right price. I sent it to a tailor and told him exactly what I designed this shirt. Like, I told him this is what I wanted it to look like. And, but I remember when I was over there, I was working with a Cameroonian professor, and he said something, and just to answer this question, he said, as a Cameroonian, he was like, I see you as a black man as the son and us as the father. He said, we have resources, we have, wealth and riches, but because of your proximity to just the education and things like just, like if we were to come together, if we were to, connect together, it would be a very powerful thing. And I remember hearing that, and that just like being like, wow, they want me, like they want us. So here's where it gets crazy, right? So then I do Ancestry. And I find out I am 29% Cameroonian.
Yeah.
I was at
He's your
home.
father.
He's literally.
I'm like, Daddy.
That's amazing.
Why did you not come get me? But no, that was like profound to me.
Yeah.
And so I feel that connection, and then to realize that like I had that actual connection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So shout out to Nigeria too, 10% there. Yeah. But here's the other bug part: 30% from Benin, Togo, and that becomes significant because Benin, Togo plays the backdrop for the warriors that we see in the women warriors that we see in Wakanda. Like that actually came from the Dahomey tribe. What are they called? The Dora
Milaje.
The Dora Milaje.
Yeah.
And which is actually like I'm like, now this is why I understand why my grandmama and my mom are so fierce, right? Because we come from that like okay, this makes sense now because they know how to use a knife too.
Yeah.
And a spear. Don't give him a spear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I wanted to juxtapose that with now the flip side of that coin. So Claw, he's talking to Killmonger right, as he's dying. And he's like, yo, he refers to him and Killmonger as us. And he says, Wakanda are savages. Don't go there. You're a foreigner. They're savages. Look what they did to me. And he shows them the brand, right? It's just like he's saying, no. It's us versus them, right? And I was like, man, I think that's how I see myself. I think that's me. I think I see a closer brethren to my white American brothers than I do my African brothers.
African American, the emphasis is on American.
Oh, yeah.
All the way.
Yeah. It's African American.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's right. And it kind of goes back to the point I was trying to make before, is that there is this subtle sort of devaluing of Africa that takes place even in the Black American mind, where it's like you see yourself as American and what America represents and the power and the wealth that's there. And those Africans are kind of just over there struggling, and we wish them luck, but that's not really my experience, right? And so, and I've even heard from people who've come from Africa and have been in America for a while. It's like, yeah, you don't want to go to Africa. Like this belittling of the entire continent. So, but
and I was going to say too, and this is why it's a dialogue, because that's not just a one-way thing. Because the other thing that happens when Killmonger does come and he's before the council, and they're like, "We don't know, you don't have any stake here."
Yeah,
and so there is a sense, and even why
they call him a
T'Chaka,
foreigner over and over again.
Rejects him, the child in the first place is like, that's not us. So that's what I'm saying about this dialogue. Like, there's this very interesting and hard conversations that we need to have as a diaspora about what does it mean. And it's Caribbean to African American, it's African to Caribbean, all of those dynamics play themselves out in a very, very real way in our lives.
And I think again to that, I mean, most people in the diaspora identify themselves as the place where they're immediately from, right? And so you have Guyanese people who have aughts with Trini people, and you have Haitian, and like even Americans or Haitians and Jamaicans. It's like there's so much what do we call it? Just tribalism,
Family feuds,
right? And I mean, and it's a regular thing for them for even people in the Caribbean to see Americans in one way.
Oh yeah, I grew up on that.
Right.
All Black Americans were lazy and like were second class citizens.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool. One of the major powerful aspects of this film, shout out to Black women everywhere.
Yo,
my goodness,
it was beautiful.
Shout out to Black women everywhere.
My mama, my wife.
We gotta talk
Yeah.
the Dora Milaje.
Yes.
We have to talk to Dora Milaje.
Yes.
Y'all, I have never seen the portrayal of the strength and the beauty of the Black woman like I have seen in Dora Milaje. What were you guys' thoughts on this?
I think we have to start with that hotel scene or like the casino or whatever it was.
Yeah.
That fight scene to me goes down as one of the most amazing portrayals of just chocolate women kicking butt. Like it's just and then when they're in the car, like.
So I low key for a second I was like, "Yo, is this an Okoye superhero movie or is this Black Panther?" Because low key, when after that whole scene and in the car and all the stuff she was doing, I was like, "She's
the wig came off.
The wig came off. She threw it.
Speared.
I was like, "Look, I'm low key feeling her more as a superhero right now than I am Black Panther." Like it was that
like
serious.
A FU to like European beauty standards.
No, it was a very powerful image and statement. The fact that she was bald, the fact that, she like even, and I didn't get it in Civil War when they were walking with him. I didn't really understand. I had no category to put him in. They were actually like his protection.
And I was like, who is this woman threatening Black Widow?
Right. I was like,
and I didn't know who.
I was like,
Black Widow need to fall back. I was like, don't die, Natasha.
Now I understood what T'Challa said. As much as I would love to see that, for another time, because he knew.
Yeah, he knew what happened.
He knew what was up. No, man. Between seeing Shuri as the tech, support, brilliant mind behind the suits, Angela Bassett as the royal queen. And then of course Okoye and even Lupita's character Nakia as this spy. I mean, it was this such a range
Yes.
of interesting, dynamic tensions. And how about that scene when Nakia and Okoye is about to go at it because you know when Killmonger becomes the king and she's like, all right, come on, let's go. And Okoye's like, where you going?
Yeah,
I ain't going nowhere.
Yeah,
I serve the throne.
I serve the and that like you know, and it's just so it just showed depth.
Yeah.
And complexity,
Yes.
and beauty and interest in a way that I thought made it a very just like holistically, you know, celebratory thing.
Yeah. For me, one thing was very powerful, man. All kinds of symbolism here, but just that ending scene when the kingdom is split apart, and you see, I forget his, what's Aluyu's character?
Who?
Daniel.
What's his name? Wakabi.
Yeah, so one thing that I thought was just very possible is when the kingdom is split apart and you see Wakabi kind of side with Killmonger, and you see the Dora Milaje is Jay just say, they look at Killmonger and say, you're not fit to be a king, and then they just defend T'Challa and they stand with him, and they stand with the hero there, and there was just all this sort of like, wow, man, like it made me think about just the black woman and the loyalty that we've often seen black women just stand for the black man. And Okoye down to just continue to say like, look, I'm just gonna stand with the king no matter what. And it was just a beautiful picture of just the level of loyalty that I don't know if we often give back to our black women as they stand with us in the heat of battle, man.
Yeah. What I thought was like African American and African diaspora women have been the Dora Milaje in our community. Yeah. Like this is just a kind of movie depiction of what has been real in a lot of ways. And so that definitely and then how about the fact that it wasn't like overly sexualized or it didn't have these like tropes of just, you know, these flat characters of just them being one thing. It wasn't the attitude, sister girl. It was just like these dynamic, interesting, significant people. And in a lot of ways, like you said, like, and we can talk about T'Challa a little bit later, but like the reality was, I think in a very deliberate way, as a new king, he was more unsure of himself than Okoye was, than his mother was, than his younger sister was.
So true.
And I think that like to have space as a man to try to like figure it out and then them be like strong, but they still got his back. They're not like, you know, attacking his weakness, but they're trying to kind of come up. I think it just had such a beautiful picture. And then just a brother-sister dynamic.
Yes.
It just was a holistic picture of what it means for us to have healthy relationships, you know, across genders that you don't see.
Even for T'Challa, like allowing himself to be influenced by the wisdom, you know,
of Nakia in particular.
I mean, we just to say it, the Black Panther fails miserably if he does not have the women that he has in his life.
Yeah.
Point blank.
As a king, forget
he
the Black Panther.
Cannot
the king,
survive as king.
If
he does not have these significant women in his life, and that is so beautiful the way that they portrayed that.
Yeah, just to kind of speak more into this, like I was just blown away with how they put black women in a position of just showing how fearless they are. Because if you notice, anytime someone is going to fight the Black Panther, there is a on purpose, like deliberate evening of the playing field. So he drinks the stuff or whatever. They strip away his power.
Yeah.
Then he fights somebody. They challenge him, right? So he fights M'Baku, level playing field. He fights Eric Killmonger, level playing field. Even when they fight as Black Panthers, level playing field. But Shuri, Nakia, the whole Dora Milaje were fighting Killmonger as a Black Panther, and they had no Black Panther juices. So they were engaging in the only uneven battle that the movie depicted.
So good.
And they just went in. It wasn't like, oh shoot, he's got the juice. He's got the suit on.
Yes.
They were like, oh,
yeah,
time
I was
to fight.
so
It's time to
scared.
go.
I was scared
I was
at
like,
the end when they were fighting. I was like, oh my gosh.
yes,
Oh my
and they're
gosh.
holding their own.
And they're holding their own.
So
If his
that was
suit
powerful.
didn't have that,
Yo, listen, they
vibration,
didn't have the suit.
he was about to get it.
He was
They were
about
like,
to catch
get
that
his-
L.
Yes.
They had him down trying to they were like, take the chain. They
Yes.
had him at one point.
Yes.
And he, oh man.
So I thought that was crazy. The way that they were like, you know what? The women are playing on an uneven playing field, but they're still handling business.
Yeah. Man, it's so good. So I think we definitely have to talk about the white people in the film.
Yes, there are two.
Shout out to
Ross and Claw.
Yes.
Yeah. I for me, I thought they were both very well done characters. And the film just had a good balance. I mean, yeah, there were jokes thrown around, and what was the one she said? At one point, she said, "Another broken white boy for me to fix."
Yeah.
And don't scare me, colonizer. This is Shuri saying all these things.
Great.
So it was fun, but I still think both those characters were very, very good. So I think, for one, let's talk about Claw first. What were your thoughts on Claw just as a villain? Kind of like the main villain for the first half of the movie. What were your thoughts on him?
I would say Claw. I mean, this is not the first time we see Claw.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I appreciated that they didn't try to add any kind of like racial components to him. Like, they didn't make him a racist all of a sudden because he's in Black Panther, and it's just oh yeah, now we gotta like add some like spin on him. He's just like a normal. He's the everyday punk arms dealer, that we see in the Marvel universe, who's, he's been stealing from them for 30 years. That's one thing they dropped in. I was like, oh my gosh, 30 years.
And it was a great,
Actually, though, I disagree. I think that there were racial undertones to his statements, but it wasn't. It was like what they call like dog whistling. So he said when he calls them savages, when he's in the room with Ross, and he was like, "I am more your speed. Don't you want to work with me?
True,
not
true.
them."
Oh, so what you're saying this was the first time you were seeing this, or not? Or because there were definitely racial overtones.
Right.
You're saying in this movie.
Yeah. When he called them savages and
Well, I took that to be his general like I didn't feel like they added that for this movie. I felt like that was his.
No, that's who he was.
Yeah,
he just was always racist. Like, and part of the thing that, for context, and it was, I saw it in the dress in Age of Ultron, but it was more explicit here in the scene where actually he fights Killmonger and he says, "I'm going back to Joburg." And what that shows is that he's very clearly an Afrikaner. Which Afrikaners in particular are kind of the embodiment of the colonial presence in Africa, because they actually set up shop in South Africa and claim the land as their own and set up apartheid for generations.
Yeah.
And so
I'm going to school now, y'all.
And so Claw is, he has the accent, he has the swag, he has the kind of mannerisms of the Afrikaner in South Africa, and actually says, "I'm going to Joburg" when he goes to get in the plane. And so in a lot of ways, I thought that, I think it was even better though that it wasn't explicit, because you could, it brings out the conversation, but he plays the part of the person who's primarily involved with exploiting the resources, of taking them, don't care about the culture, reinterpreting that culture in its in the most bad, evil, way as possible, racist way as possible. And he does that, but it's all without it being explicit. Yeah. And I think that is the power of it, because it allows you to open up that conversation about what's really happening, and the thing, I mean, his motivation, racism is about greed anyway. It's just so his him trying to capture everything for himself and just kind of pillage the land that he's seen is about that. And then trying to network and connect with Ross, CIA, to be a part of that process, which we know historically is actually what did happen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That there was an international conspiracy working together to exploit these resources, because people did see them as a different set of people than the quote unquote savages. Yeah. So I thought that was a nice tie-in, but it was like more implied than it was explicit, if you didn't catch those different phrases that he was saying. I think that's what made it more powerful.
Yeah. So going to Ross, what were your thoughts on him? How'd you guys see Ross? He was everybody's, punching bag for a moment.
I thought he was a typical American, what I'm saying, assuming that he runs the show.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? In many of the scenes, you see that in the casino and even afterward, assuming that we're America, so like we're
Yeah.
we're more advanced than you, like
Yeah,
kind of, so
sure.
we got it. Like I just loved his character throughout the movie, kind of like even how he progressed
Yeah.
to learning more about Wakanda, and almost like he was a part of the team, especially
Yeah.
at the end, willing to give his life for everything going on. So I mean, I thought his character was really developed well, and I'm interested to see what he does in the next movies actually. So
I think it was a good point that you raised about how he is this kind of symbolic American presence in the assumptions there, because he's there to make this arms deal to get vibranium. He thinks that's the top priority. Meanwhile, we know the backstory that T'Challa is there, to settle a score that has been around for decades before that.
Yeah.
And is a bigger story, and to get justice for Wakabi back home, who's like, yo, like bring him back.
Yeah.
And so you see these things at cross purposes, and he eventually falls back. But the other thing that's interesting about Ross is that in the Civil War, when he first appears in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, he's part of the driving force of people that are going at Captain America, and the whole Sokovia Accords that come as a result of them interpreting who it was that was responsible for the explosion that killed T'Chaka, and blaming it on the Winter Soldier, and blaming it therefore, and then creating a scenario where Captain America and the Avengers are fighting each other. And so in many ways, because that's when Black Panther comes on the scene, and based on that bad information, he goes after the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And and so I thought it was really interesting that when he reminds him, hey, I saved you because I went and was helped get the guy Zemo, who was really responsible. And so there's that backstory. So because of that backstory, I really think Ross has to find redemption out of a place where he, had got it all wrong before, and he even gets rescued and saved. But then at the end, to kind of have his life kind of on the line is almost kind of a redemption story because of how wrong he got it and all of the, implications of that in the past. So I thought that was really interesting to have him in it. But I also love the fact that, and I think the humor of the colonizer, the humor of like, it's kind of like be humble. You know what I mean? Like
even M'Baku,
Right.
and M'Baku's like threatening to eat him.
You cannot speak. You cannot
I'm gonna
talk.
feed you to my kids. Like, nah, we just vegetarians. We just
all of
chill.
that. And I think it's fun to it's part of what is an expression of having a storyline centered in the African experience, right? And that backdrop of the common thread of you typically make bad assumptions about who we are, make wrong assumptions about our capacity. You often underestimate us, and I think he's symbolic of that. And yet, because he's also the link to the broader cinematic universe of Marvel, that I think a lot of what we're going to see moving forward with his now being fully integrated in his life being saved by Wakandan technology, I suspect that that's going to play a part in the Infinity Wars and in the stories to come.
It's good.
Kind of made an ally, and then you see at the end as well that Winter Soldier is now like an adopted son of Wakanda,
which has major implications, because the whole eventual Civil War gets started because Zemo figures out how to flip the switch and make Winter Soldier into their basic
kill machine
again.
Yeah.
And so even afterwards, Bucky is like, I don't know if I should even be in the mix anymore because I don't know how to stop this with the limitations of the technology that we know of. Well, guess where those limitations don't exist?
And guess where some metal for that arm could come from?
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that they call him White Wolf too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's like, what might be the
comic book
implication?
wise, that's another adopted son of Wakanda who ends up being like an ally with Black Panther. So
I think
we
he
can
does.
see-
He ends up running the War Dogs or something like that. I heard.
Exactly. So then we have the whole War Dog connection potentially to Doctor Strange because of the same city.
that was ridiculous. Oh my god.
Yeah. Did we talk about that?
We didn't.
Let's talk about it right now.
Talk about it right now. Throw it in it.
So we got Tokyo, London, New York. Those are
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, sorry. And those are the same gate the gatekeepers where Dormammu's forces were coming through in Doctor Strange, and it just so happens that that's the place where Killmonger was trying to send the ships to the War Dogs. There might be a connection there.
Yeah.
Yes, especially since we know in Doctor Strange that one of the brother in Doctor Strange,
Mordo might be Wakandan, maybe.
Mordo
Yo, that would be
is disillusioned
unbelievable.
from the Order and walks away at the end of it, and we don't know what's going to happen with him. That's unresolved in Doctor Strange, and so, but yeah, I think it's very significant that Killmonger tells the ships to go to the same exact cities that that appear in Doctor Strange as the gates that open up the world that probably will be where Thanos comes from.
Yeah. So,
good
but
stuff.
going back to Ross, I think another thing was I was glad that he was able to have a significant contribution without being the white savior of the movie. Like,
absolutely.
he definitely put his life on the line. He definitely showed allegiance to Wakanda, but it was more of like a secondary mission that he was on to destroy the ships.
And even in his ability to do that, he doesn't do that without Shuri.
Right. She's like,
giving
look, I
him
made
the
it
tech.
comfortable for you.
Yes,
I made it American shit.
style. She's guiding him through the whole thing. So there's this sense in which, like, you're doing this, but you won't be able to do this by yourself. So it was very well done in the fact that we're going to show you his evolution as a character, how he can come alongside us and help, but he is not going to be the white savior of this thing.
Yeah, I
Absolutely not.
appreciated that.
All right. Wow, gentlemen, there's so much to unpack here that we have to do 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about Killmonger and T'Challa, a couple themes running through the film in the next episode. Stay tuned. This is Bryant the Theological Giant.
Daniel the Creator.
Rich the husband.
Rasul the Messenger.
All right, guys, stay tuned. We will be discussing more Black Panther in the next one. See you later.